Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Your Mark on the World show. I'm your host, Devin Thorpe, and we're excited to have with us Michelle Thimesch, who is the CEO of Crowdfund Mainstreet. And I really want you to stick around and listen to this. If you are a social entrepreneur, this is a can't miss discussion. And if you're interested in impact investing, don't turn away from the screen. Stick around.
Welcome to the Your Mark on the World show with your champion of social good, Devin D. Thorpe.
Michelle, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Devin. Thank you for having me.
Well, I'm thrilled to have you. I am as big a fan of crowdfunding as there is, and for me, the sweet spot is using crowdfunding for social entrepreneurs, for impact investing, and that's where you're operating. I'm just thrilled to hear your story, get your take, but introduce us, if you will, before I gum it up. Tell us about Crowdfund Mainstreet.
Crowdfund Mainstreet is a regulation crowdfunding platform formed as a result of Title III of the Jobs Act. I was prompted to delve into this because I come from an entrepreneurial background, an entrepreneurial family. When the Jobs Act passed in 2012, I was extremely excited about the prospect of what that legislation could do. It took 4 years to get the regulations, but once they finally came, I knew that I needed to be a part of it.
Yeah. Well, it's an interesting space. Your partner, Jenny Kassan, has been lawyering in this space for a long time. She was doing crowdfunding before Regulation CF, using a variety of tools, including 504A offerings, as I recall, or Regulation Reg D 504 offerings, when almost no one was doing them. Almost no one. She was out there doing them, and other things as well. Are you doing any of those style offerings on the platform, or is everything now Reg CF?
Everything for us is Reg CF.
Excellent, excellent. And how is it working in terms of, some of the complaints about Title III and even the implementation of Reg CF have been that it's too costly. Tell us a little bit about the costs that people are experiencing, especially, Michelle, the costs you don't charge, but that are required still of, legal and accounting and that sort of thing.
The biggest obstacle is, in fact, the reviewed financials component. Reviewed financials being one step down from audited financials is quite a heavy burden for issuers. Most regular CPAs don't offer that service. It's pretty specialized. So yes, we have found a couple of CPAs that we're now working with and referring issuers to, but it has been a struggle. That price tag for them is pretty high.
Yeah. No review is required to raise money up to $107,000, right?
That is correct.
And so on your platform, you've got 6 offerings right now, right?
Correct.
How much are those folks trying to raise?
They range. Most of those issuers are looking to raise at least $300,000, all the way up to the maximum of $1,070,000.
So if you're trying to raise $1,070,000, you have to have audited financials, right?
Not your first time.
Not the first time. Okay. Just the second time.
Right.
Okay. But otherwise, you need a reviewed financial statement if you're doing more than 107. It sounds like all of your issuers are doing more than 107. So they've all gone through that hurdle of obtaining reviewed financial statements.
Yes, they have.
And then you have a platform fee of 6.5%. Is that right?
That's correct. And that's it. There are no hidden fees.
Yeah.
You will often find other platforms that charge various fees in addition to that fee. Ours is very straightforward. That's all we charge.
How are you and your issuers complying with the rules around the maximum investments that individuals can make, both singly in a deal and overall during the course of a year?
As part of our invest process, there is a very simple process that we go through for invest under our Invest Now button. And part of that, you answer some questions that are designed to have the computer essentially calculate where you are and how much you can invest and whether or not you're within your limit.
I see. Fantastic. The issuers, have a lot to worry about, and most of them are not prepared to really do their own legal work. Are you helping them with some of the legal stuff? I know Jenny has a legal background. Are you helping them with compliance?
Yes, one of the things that really distinguishes Crowdfund Mainstreet is the fact that we have a really close partnership with Jenny Kassan Consulting. In fact, every single issuer that is currently on the platform is a Jenny Kassan Consulting client. So they have had the benefit of her services for crafting their offerings. We believe, of course, that customizing and crafting offerings based on your company rather than picking something off the shelf is one of the things that will distinguish the issuers on our platform.
I see. And how are the issuers doing? I noticed that some of them are coming up on the end of their windows. Are they reaching toward their goals?
Yes, one of the things that we don't do that we get some pushback from the issuers on is we do not show investments that haven't been committed. So oftentimes, depending on whether an investor chooses to send a check or do ACH, there may be a lag between the time that you make the investment commitment and you actually get around to mailing the check.
Mm-hmm. But but what you're seeing is the issuers are successfully raising money on the platform?
The issuers are having success. We are in a new marketplace for sure. So the issuers understood from the beginning that it's a process and that much of the burden is on them and their networks. They're doing a really good job of working those networks. And it's an education process, which we did I think a pretty good job in terms of this is a movement. Part of this is educating people about the ability to actually invest in small business as an asset class.
As you think about new issuers that are new social entrepreneurs with their new ventures, what advice would you give someone in that situation that's thinking about doing a Reg CF offering today?
Definitely have a handle on your business model, your revenue model, and the more you understand about that, the better equipped you will be to actually craft an offering that makes sense. Many entrepreneurs do not understand that they have that option because they're used to seeing something in the VC world where the investors hand you the term sheet. You don't understand that you are actually in a position to craft your own offering.
Yeah, that is something that's kind of special about the Reg CF model. How are you seeing people work with larger investors as part of the crowdfund offering? Certainly, most of the money, I imagine, for most of the offerings comes in relatively small chunks of 500, 250, maybe 1,000, 2,000 at a time. But on the other hand, I imagine in most deals there are one or two $10,000, $25,000 kind of investors. How are you seeing the dynamic with those larger investors play out?
Yeah, we are seeing that particularly in product-based companies, it's a little bit easier to attract the larger investments. We do have one of the issuers who's actually talking to investors about a six-figure level investment, sort of crossing that bridge between working with accredited investors who, of course, could play at that minimum level of 107,000. No one can invest more than that.
Okay. Well, it's really, really kind of an exciting place to be playing. And what do you see as the biggest selling point for Reg CF today?
I think the biggest selling point is the ability to create a separate marketplace. Right now, the only real marketplace we have for private capital is venture capital. Venture capital is suitable for a very small fraction of businesses that want to raise money. The rest of the businesses don't really have an avenue. They don't have a source of funding. So the truly exciting thing is that of there's 1.2 million companies that get started in the U.S. every year. Venture capital funds about 8,000 of those. So you put that into perspective. People say entrepreneurship is down. It is down, but the reason it's down is not because of a lack of innovation. It's down because there's no capital. So what I see as the huge opportunity is this completely brand new marketplace where triple bottom line companies can actually get funded.
Excellent. What is the biggest selling point for Crowdfund Mainstreet? What is the value proposition that you would argue you're bringing to the table that other platforms in the Reg CF space aren't?
Some of the other platforms I think are more interested. They'll even say on their sites that they are teaching the next generation of VCs, helping people become mini VCs. We are much more focused on introducing small business as an asset class to everyone as both a wealth building tool and a way to affect social, all the P's, right? The triple bottom line. So people, planet, and profits.
Yeah, great philosophy, great philosophy. So as you look out at the future, I kind of had this conversation with Jenny some months back. I tend to look at the Reg CF marketplace and see really that it hasn't quite lived up to the 2012 hype. Jenny reminds me that we're still in the early days. We're just 2 years into the implementation, even though the law passed 6 years ago.
Right.
The regs were only issued 2 years ago. She's telling me I need to be patient and that, by the way, there are a lot of issuers, a lot of offerings, a lot of platforms. I'm just not paying attention. How do you see the future building with respect to Regulation CF?
I do think that 2 years is infancy when it comes to a new law. And just like real estate, I've been involved in real estate and real estate investing for quite some time. And if you look at the comparison of where real estate was maybe 15 years ago as an asset class, there's a learning curve where people don't even realize that they've been boxed out of this asset class and that if they weren't accredited, they didn't have these opportunities. But once people do start to understand that this is a viable option for them, we are definitely seeing a lot of momentum, particularly among the younger generations. It's almost the very young, as well as the women who are coming into wealth. I don't know if you've seen the statistics, but women not only control many of the purchasing decisions, but are also standing to inherit a lot of wealth and be in control of a huge amount of wealth in this country. And we think women are more long view investors in general.
Yeah. One of the interesting dynamics that has developed in parallel with and overlapping with the investment crowdfunding community is cryptocurrencies. Mm-hmm. And so some Reg CF platforms are doing crypto kinds of things. Are you doing any yet? And if not, do you see yourself doing some in the future?
What I see us doing, we are not doing anything currently. I am not a big fan of that space. However, I do think blockchain and securitized tokenization is very viable and will eventually come to fruition. And we would be a part of that. In fact, we have some discussions going on about that with regard to a real estate transaction, actually.
It does seem to make sense for blockchain to replace or supplement our typical traditional, what do we call them, the agents who keep track of the shares. Anyway, but yeah, seems to make sense to have ownership of shares recorded on the blockchain. So yeah, great observation.
That is exciting technology,
Yeah.
for sure.
Well, Michelle, this isn't your first rodeo. You've been doing great things throughout your career. What are you most proud of having accomplished?
Raising my 3 children, to be honest. But as far as professionally, I think what I'm most proud of is finally learning the value of being in a business, in a new setting where it's okay to fail forward. We're learning as we go. My background as an attorney, I was very focused on perfection, not making mistakes. And this is a very different field. This is a field where we are making mistakes daily and learning from those mistakes and really embracing that. So I'm proud of the fact that I have finally learned that.
That's great. What is the most important lesson you've learned about crowdfunding as you've worked to set up this Crowdfund Mainstreet?
The most important thing I think that I've learned is that there's a lot of education that has to happen, that people don't even realize that they've been boxed out of an entire asset class, which is really interesting. So I think the most interesting thing for me about this process has been the opportunity for revitalization. We are in discussions with a lot of people who are very committed to going into some of those communities that have had struggles in revitalizing after the Industrial Revolution, where they just haven't been able to get that momentum. So using regulation crowdfunding as a revitalization tool is one of the things that is most exciting. And the thing that I've learned is that communities are really eager for this type of solution.
Excellent. Why was it important for you to be involved with Crowdfund Mainstreet? Why did you want to do this? There's so much you could do.
I have this idea that we can save the middle class. And as we experience more income and political inequality in our society, I started to feel like there was something that I could contribute to help bolster the middle, which I believe is critical to bringing back a little bit more of that equality.
Excellent. So, Michelle, what is your superpower?
My superpower is spotting talent. It's no wonder that I finally came across Jenny Kassan. I'm able to see the skills that other people have and their potential and appreciate them for what they offer. And it fascinates me that people come from all different places and are so resilient, particularly entrepreneurs, that I'm a big fan of as problem solvers. So I would say that my superpower is really being able to spot people who have what it takes, the resiliency and the tenacity to bring something to fruition despite the fact that there are many obstacles.
Oh, that's great. Well, Michelle, we really appreciate you taking the time to be with us today, and we wish you, we're excited for the prospects for you for the future. Before you go, would you take just a moment and tell us how people can learn more about Crowdfund Mainstreet and how they can connect with you personally?
Sure. My email address is easy. It's michelle@crowdfundmainstreet.com, and the platform, crowdfundmainstreet.com, we also have a section with learning and educational materials. So people are invited to check out the website and to also engage with any of the entrepreneurs that are on the website currently and ask them any questions that you may have about what it would be like to invest in their companies.
Fantastic. Well, Michelle, again, thank you very much for being with us today, and we do wish you every success in the great work you're doing. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you for having me, Devin.
All righty, let's do some good.
Thank you for listening. Devin Thorpe's mission is to end extreme poverty, improve global health, and mitigate climate change before 2045 by finding and sharing the stories of those who are doing the most good. You can join with other listeners to accelerate Devin's mission by visiting helpdevin.org right now.